Today on Across the Table, we had an amazing conversation with Will Packer. His new book, Who Better Than You, comes on February 18th. We were so excited to sit down with him, and we think you're really going to enjoy the conversation.
Hey
Hi,
guys,
how you doing?
I am doing great. How y'all doing?
We're great. Thanks.
Good. So
Good.
nice to meet you.
The pleasure's all mine. I'm really appreciative of you guys taking some time to chat with me today.
Will, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I have to tell you that I'm a little bit of a stalker of yours. We have wanted to have you as part of Women in Entertainment and Across the Table for so long because of your reputation and everything that you do for the actors and actresses, the people that you championed. You have set such a gold standard. We've been fans for so long, so this is kind of a pinch me moment for us to actually get to sit down and speak with you.
I
So we're very
love that.
excited.
This is going to go great. I feel like this is a warm welcome. This is going to be a warm room. I'm very appreciative of that. Thank you. I'm glad we're finally able to do it. I think the timing is perfect. There's a lot going on in the world and
Yeah.
entertainment, and I got stuff happening. So what better time than now? Thanks for having me, y'all.
No, thank you for taking the time. We know you're busy and your book's coming out. Like you said, you've got a lot going on. So I always joke that how long do we have? We only have an hour because there's I've got like days of things to talk to Will about and ask him about. So, but no, thank you. It was all seriousness. Thank you for joining us. This is
Absolutely.
really
It's
exciting
an
for
honor.
us.
Thanks for the platform.
So you have a list of accolades. You're a writer, you're a producer, you're a director, all of these things. Now you are a published author.
Published author. But I will say I'm not a director. So I'm
Well, right.
very respectful of all my
Of,
colleagues
of
and peers in the
directors.
industry, and everybody kind of does their thing. I am a very hands-on creative producer.
Producer, right?
And I, obviously work with a bunch of amazingly talented directors, but I try to stay on the producing side. I am much more of a macro manager. I'm much
Mm-hmm.
more macro in terms of project and relationships and the way that I think about accomplishing things. Directors have a skill set of being able to really focus on the minutia. And
Mm.
I have a bunch of admiration for those that are able to do that. I have no desire to do that. I can't, it's hard for me to focus that specifically on the minor details that you have to, right? I don't necessarily look at a scene and say, the tablecloth has to be red. That's how the scene is. I walk in and I'm going, okay, who are the actors in it? What is the
Yeah.
narrative thrust of the scene? Where is the scene? Is the backdrop correct? Like I'm thinking of it in those kinds of ways. So anyway, all those things are true except directing. But yes, published author, this is brand new for me.
Okay, I'm a little curious to what you just said about the minutia because I will ask you about your family and becoming, but magna cum laude electrical engineer. I'm gonna guess that's a little detail oriented.
It is. It is. It is. It is. And it's interesting because people will say to me, well, you just wasted that engineering degree because you went over to work in Hollywood. The interesting thing about it is that, yes, you do have to be able to focus on details and pay attention in that medium. I mean, I'm talking engineering specifically. I have a honors degree in electrical engineering. But the thing that it really does is it hones your analytical mind. And I think that gives me a leg up on my peers sometimes because I definitely, through the study, getting that degree, the college I went to, Florida A&M University, I went on a scholarship for electrical engineering because I was really strong in math and science coming out of high school. And I had, test scores, et cetera, that justified me being able to get a scholarship in a STEM field, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And so even though that feels like it's far away from the creative realm or creative mediums, the reality, I think, is that when I approach as a producer, when I approach the challenges and problems that inevitably all producers face and that are rampant throughout this particular industry, overcoming various challenges. I take a very analytical approach to problem solving, and I bring that to a creative medium. And I think that that kind of a different approach, a unique approach, actually serves me very well and has certainly benefited me and my success in the industry. So I'm thankful for my engineering degree. I couldn't tell you a lot about circuitry or thermodynamics or high-level physics at this point because I've been away from it from so long. However, I do still very much use my analytical brain when it comes to solving problems in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. Well, you had said in a couple different interviews that you really got the bug for Hollywood or film your sophomore year, in terms of starting to get your interest in film and that creative side. Can you talk a little bit about just how you discovered this type of path for yourself? And then we can kind of take it.
Yeah. I found my passion for filmmaking and storytelling when I was in college. And like a lot of people, I kind of stumbled into what ultimately became my career passion. So I didn't grow up thinking, how do I get to Hollywood? How do I tell stories? How do I become a film producer? I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to work for myself, have my own business. That was always something that I aspired to. And when I was a sophomore in college, majoring in electrical engineering in Tallahassee, Florida, I mean, all those things are about as far away from Hollywood as you can be, right?
Yeah.
But there was a guy who is still one of my very good friends to this day, and his name is Rob Hardy. And Rob grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He ended up also in engineering because he got a scholarship to go to FAMU. He wasn't intending to go to FAMU. Interestingly, neither of us, and FAMU is my school, Florida A&M University, both of us were accepted to Ivies in the Northeast. I was, in my mind, headed to Penn because I wanted to attend Wharton because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So that's what you do. You go, get an MBA, learn that. He was headed to, I believe it was Yale. And he also was considering liberal arts. But we both were proficient in math and science. So we got these engineering degrees because there was a big push down at FAMU to get talented engineering students at the time. So we both end up at this school that we kind of really didn't want to be at in a field that we kind of really weren't that passionate about. And we were roommates freshman year. And he said, you know what? I really want to be a movie director. And I said, oh, wow, well, that's crazy. Like, we don't know any movie directors. That sounds like something that like
You're in
you
Florida.
make up. We're in Tallahassee. Like, what? Like, okay, I want to be a superhero. You know what I mean? Like, but same likelihood of happening. And so we actually shot our first film when we were sophomores. And I really honestly was helping out my buddy. I was helping him. And by helping him, I was helping him to cast it, helping him to raise money for it, and then ultimately to self-distribute the project. And it was successful on that level. So we raised maybe $20,000 between cash and in-kind services to make this tiny movie, Chocolate City. And then we self-distributed it in our little city, but we treated it like it was such a big deal because to us it was.
Yeah.
Very quickly, we learned that Hollywood didn't care about all the various independent movies that were happening around the country. We thought if you make a movie, I mean, that's it, right? They should hand you an Academy Award because you just made it so damn hard. Like just the fact that we got it done. Of course, Hollywood didn't care, but they cared in Tallahassee and at FAMU at our school because they saw themselves on screen. And these kids would go, and I talked a second-run movie theater into allowing us to show our film. And these kids would go every single weekend to see this movie, like over and over and over again. And that's when I realized, you know what? There's value. We're making this not for Hollywood audiences, but for the audience that sees themselves in this movie, that sees a story that represents them in a way that other people are not in the stories that they're telling. And there's value there. And I was always planning to get my engineering degree and still go and attend Wharton to get my MBA. But somewhere along the way, we made this little $20,000 movie. And after all those various showings and we sold soundtracks and merchandise like T-shirts and hats and all that, we'd made $100,000 with this movie. And so that's 5X in any language. And I said, you know what? what are they going to teach me at Wharton? They're going to teach me how to create a widget, sell a widget, market a widget. Like, this is my widget. This is like, I don't know that I need to go and spend more money and more time in school. Like, what's this thing called that I just did? Help get it self-distributed, found money, help, cast it. Well, that's called producing. That's what I learned. I said, that thing. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pivot and I'm going to be a producer. And I'm still doing it today.
There's almost and I know the theme of your book of there's no one more deserving than you.
Yes.
I love, and what I'm hearing you tell this story is, it's almost your superpower was you not what you didn't know. You didn't know to be scared and to know how hard it was. I mean, you were living it, but it's almost that that feeling of, why not me and why not us, and working hard. I love that was, I mean, to have that in your very first experience and still be doing that is quite amazing.
Yeah. I mean, to me, what you just said is transferable for any industry. That whole, what about me? Why not me? Right.
Yeah.
And who better than me? That literally drove the onset of my movie career. Like, well, why not? Like, Hollywood doesn't care. I'm not getting my calls returned. I don't have a rich uncle who can fund these movies. Like, let's just go for it. Why not? Like, who better than us? Literally was kind of the mentality. And the power was in what we didn't know, right? Mm-hmm. You referenced like the like naivete that we had. There was power in that. And sometimes I say to people that like the known entities of life, of things that we're trying to do and accomplish, the known can cripple us sometimes. The known can hold us back. If I knew then what I knew now, I wouldn't be sitting where I'm sitting, because I would say, okay, there is such a small likelihood of success, of me ever being a successful movie producer. Let me go. And I was an analytical thinker. I still am. I would have said, you know what? I probably got a better chance doing something else. Let's do that, because this aperture is too narrow for success in this particular industry. But it was the fact that I didn't know that, didn't accept that as truth at that time. And so I had this passion of like, I just want to see where it goes. And sometimes like that is the magic. Obviously in Hollywood, that's the magic of artistry. You just go out, you got to take the leap, you got to go and see what happens. But to me, that's the magic of life. When you are willing to say, I want to see where this leads. Let's see how big this can get. Let's see how successful I can be in whatever medium. Throughout life, we're held back by the things that we know. Okay, I know that's not going to work. I'm not going to go right because I know that's a dead-end street. Well, somebody else didn't know and went right and then figured out a way to get past the dead end that nobody else is doing. That's literally what I talk about in this book. Take those dead ends sometimes. Make the right when you know going right, everybody else who went right didn't succeed. Yeah, you got to do it. Otherwise, there's literally no way that you ever expand beyond what you know. The unknown is powerful. The known can be crippling.
No, absolutely. It's funny. I sometimes talk to my husband about going back to school, and he's like, why would you want an MBA? He's like, at this stage, he's like, it's just going to teach you not to take risks.
He's not wrong.
He's like, at this point, you've built you have a business. Like, why would you take, it's going to do is teach you all of the things to avoid.
Yes.
And instead of just running straight through the wall.
I had that same conversation with myself because I kind of always, one of my plans was to get an MBA, and I never kind of let that go. I was like, okay, well, after I get my engineering degree, I'll get an MBA. And then I was like, well, I'm going to try this film thing for a little while, and then I'll go back and get it. And then the film thing kind of got going, but I was like, I still need that though. Like, I felt like I still needed the validation of like a traditional system telling me, okay, yes, you know what to do. And then I think it was when I started getting asked to come and speak to MBA classes that I realized, you know what? I'm probably good. I'm probably
you probably don't need to go back to school for that.
Yeah, okay. You know what I mean?
No, but it's funny because I've had the same, over the course of my career, I've had I'm always like, maybe I'll get back there, and then you kind of hit a point where you're like,
yeah,
I'm not really sure that's going to be helpful to me at this point.
Yeah. And listen, and I don't besmirch people who go that route and go film school.
Sure.
Like I didn't do any of those things. But remember, we all have a finite amount of time to chase our passions, to live our lives, to construct our dreams. It's a finite amount of time. It's up to us to determine how we're using that time, right? Some people use their times fretting, right? Nervously thinking about like what all could go wrong. And they spend an inordinate amount of time doing that. Those people typically don't accomplish a lot. Some people spend time just, throwing caution to the wind and never doing anything traditional or anything in kind of a measured way and just trying a bunch of stuff. Those people oftentimes aren't successful because they're not quite focused enough. It's a balance. Yeah. So whether you're spending your time chasing the MBA or an accounting degree or a JD, whatever it may be.
You have to do what's right for you.
It's up to you. Yeah. What's right for you.
Yeah.
You got it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things that comes through in the book and that you talk about a little bit is taking risks and where does that come from? And one of the questions that I really wanted to kind of get your thoughts on are what you've done with your whole career in taking risks. And you talk about that, these films like Twa was the fatal attraction for the Black community. And we all, Girls Trip was the hangover for the Black female community. So you stayed very true, exactly what you were just said. You took your, you said focus risk in those. And it seems to me, and I was a film buyer I went through my whole career for AMC and for all of these. So, all of your films have just been, part of my, my life and my career. But we're thinking about, Renee and I talk a lot about, like Angel Studios and what they're doing and staying, so focused on the faith-based films. And, Blumhouse is a good example, staying so focused on, you were the trailblazer in that area. Did you feel pulled? Did you get pulled to say, hey, you need to get out of these Black stories? I mean, you just had success after success where you stayed focused and then the old term was crossed over to bigger audiences. What advice, how did you stay focused in that? And then what is your advice for, some of these, production companies or some of these creators that are kind of copying what you did in their own niche and staying true to that? Yeah. What do you feel about that?
No,
now?
that's, I'm so glad you brought that up. The most successful people, many of them, and successful companies do a thing and they do that thing really well. And it's not the people who are enjoying what they're doing that are telling them, you should be doing something else. You're limiting yourself. You should be expanding. It's not that. It's usually the people who are doing it in their own heads or other people who may not have the best interests of the business or the artist or the endeavor, whatever the person is, in mind. I tell a story about how before my film career really got going, myself and my partner, Rob Hardy, we were in Atlanta and I was delivering newspapers door to door just to make ends meet. I had an engineering degree, mind you, but I wanted to chase this Hollywood dream. And so I was doing like delivering newspapers. I was doing data entry, answering phones at a temp job, like just whatever I could do so that I could feed myself while I tried to chase the Hollywood dream. It didn't happen overnight, boys and girls. It is a process. It always is. And we would go to this comedy club in Atlanta on open mic night because you could get in free. It was like Sunday night and Tuesday night were the slow nights at the comedy club. So they would just let comics come up and there was no admission. They just wanted you to buy drinks. And so we would go and just watch these comics. And I said, you know what? Like, I got a stage presence. I'm not shy. Like, I can do that. I'm going to go up there. And I went up and I did open mic night at a comedy club. And the big thing was not that I was so good or so funny or so, like, I didn't kill, but I didn't bomb. That was the thing. I didn't bomb.
Yeah.
And that was all I needed to feel like, oh my gosh, like, I got something here. I didn't bomb. I didn't get booed. Everybody else got booed that night. So I came back to the next open mic night. And the first night I performed, there was a comedian in the audience who has since passed on. His name was Nard Holston, and he was like a legendary Atlanta comedian. And he said to me, hey, you got something. That was a good set. Like, you need to work on it, work on this, work on that, but like, keep going, And he gave me some encouragement. So I came back to the next open mic night, And I had a whole new set and a whole new thing that I was trying to do, and I got booed immediately. And Nard, the comedian, my impromptu mentor, came up to me and said, "What the hell are you doing? What happened to the thing you just did the other day?" I said, "Well, I can't do the same set. All these people, they'd already heard it. It's like, I can't do the same thing on the same stage." He goes, "First of all, these are totally different people. Second of all, what the hell do you think comedy is?" He said, "We do the same jokes over and over and over again. You just work jokes till you find the ones that work, and then you stick with them." He said, "People come to comedy clubs to see comics do the jokes that they've heard 100 times. They literally go, wait till he does the thing. And then you got it. If you don't do the thing, they're upset." He said, when you got something, you stick to it. And that never left me. And the most successful people do a thing really, really well. So I have certainly thought, you know what? There are other things I should be doing. I should be using my ability to raise money and to finance projects to go and do, like, an art house film aimed at, middle-aged men in Alaska. Like, that's an audience, like, what am I doing for them? In today's marketplace, we're talking purely about entertainment. It's so oversaturated. There's something for everybody. Whatever it is, whatever you're into, somebody's made content aimed at you, right? In that environment, it means that everybody can be really, really discerning, and they want specificity and authenticity. And so I am somebody that believes that very, very few projects are going to be for the audience. But you better make something that is for an audience. Very few projects are for a quadrant, everybody, all around the world, everybody's going to love it. There's some, right? But that's not my jam. That's not what I do. And that's not what most people do. So if you're not making it for the audience, you better make sure you're making it for an audience. And that is something that I learned early that has stuck with me. And it doesn't mean that I can't do a breadth of things within that definition that I'm doing for a particular audience. It also doesn't mean that Girls Trip was only seen by African-American women.
No.
Opening weekend, it was primarily African-American women. My second weekend, white women, middle-aged white women, for sure, right? Like, because they said, you know what? I don't necessarily see myself in Tiffany Haddish on the surface, but the story of sisterhood and the relationships and the fun and the comedy, like, I can relate to that. The story was universal enough and inclusive enough and not exclusive that people who didn't necessarily see somebody that looked like them on the screen could enjoy the project. So that now is my ultimate goal, to make specific content for an audience that can then play to multiple audiences.
No, it is. It absolutely comes through. And I think that I love what you're saying. I love, if you're not making for the audience and an audience, and what we're seeing in, success in creators is, are people finding those? And we love that. To know that there's faith-based, that there's horror, that there's all of these, these genres being made really well. And I think, that's something that, that they're learning from you. You mentioned Tiffany and in the book and the reviews of the book, which some of them are just so funny. I mean, this is a who's who. And what I thought was so interesting is all of them coming out to praise you, Regina Halls and Kevin Hart's and Tiffany and Kerry Washington, Idris Elba, is not only were they praising the book, but they talked about, Will didn't just do this in a book. This is what it was like on set. It was on set. He was teaching and he was mentoring. And did you see that in yourself? I mean, even from the very beginning, was there a little inkling of, oh, this could be a book, because this is just, it's your personality that you're always mentoring and teaching. Did you feel that from the beginning?
I definitely feel like, as a producer, part of our job is to be the great communicator. You're the person that, director is a little bit different. They're clearly telling the actors, telling the crew exactly what to do to accomplish their vision. Producer has to bring everybody together under one roof and make sure everybody's working together, whether they're getting along or not, whether they initially wanted to be in the project or part of the project, or whether they see the vision the way that they're peers and counterparts do or not. The producer's job is to make sure everybody is rowing in the same direction. And so inherent in that is mentorship, communication, leadership, friendship, relationships, all of that. So I've always been that person. I found that I had a skill set innately that I could grow and that I could nurture that works well as a producer. And then I fell in love with the art of storytelling. So I realized I was good at getting people to row in the same direction. Then I realized, oh, I can do that in a medium that allows me to tell stories. And that's really fulfilling. I really love that. So kind of the opposite of like, find your passion and you'll never work a day in your life. I kind of found what I was good at and then found my passion within it. And I encourage people to do that because I think sometimes we get too caught up in, but I'm going to wait till I find the thing that really kind of floats my boat and then I'll work hard. Like, no, it's not how life works. In terms of the book, I'll be honest, I think it was very recently that I found like my author voice because I've done very well with, I've done public speaking before and obviously being on set, working with actors, working with crew, all those things. But what's different is that when I make a movie, I've got a team. I got a whole team. I got my actors, I got my writers, I got my, my grips and electrics. And then afterwards I have my post-production people. And then after that, I got marketing team. With a book, it's just you. And I have such respect for authors. Like it is just, like for better or for worse, whatever, like, whether Straight Outta Compton was success or fail, there were a lot of people, right? There are a lot of fathers of that success, right? But with this, it's just me. So whatever this book does, like for better or for worse, it's Will Packer. You're judging, based on Will Packer. And so it's different. And this is new for me. And I'm definitely not super comfortable because it is a new medium, but it's exciting because I'm somebody that subscribes to the belief, do the thing that scares you the most. Whatever the thing is that's making you uncomfortable, damn it, you got to do it, right? You can't live another day with that thing, that albatross, that elephant on your shoulder. You can't do it with that thing that's like, I'm so afraid to go in that room. No, I'm the person that's like, you got to kick down the door and go in that damn room, right? Like, and if you die, you die, right? If the monster's on the other side, then you know what? Get it over with because it's better to die today than a slow death every day from now to the next 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, go in and confront the thing. I'll be honest with you. You haven't asked about this, but that's why I did the Oscars. That's why I produced the Oscars because it was the thing that scared the shit out of me. It scared me. I was like, I have no business doing this thing. And I realized after I had been asked a couple of times, I said, you know what? This is the thing that's scaring me, right? Like I'm generally a fearless person, but this is holding me back. I got to go for it. And that's ultimately why I did it.
And you said you wouldn't do it again?
I would not do it again. I would not do it again. I am pretty, I mean, no, to be clear, I would not.
We'll just drop us to leave it there.
And it goes.
But I've done it. It's one of those things. I mean, I also ran a marathon for the first time last year in 2024. I wouldn't do that again either. Both
one and done.
Both things almost killed me. So I've done it
for different reasons.
Well, you've created this media empire. You've branched into new mediums, services. As you were formulating the company and as you continue to expand, what are the fears you face? Like, what are the fears? Is it starting a new is it the company? Are there projects you fear? Obviously, as you said, like the Oscars, but when you're walking into a room, what do you remember the biggest fears that you had to get over or push through as you started formulating the company, as you started making these decisions?
Ooh, so many fears, so many fears and so many challenges. Here's a belief that I have. The goal has to be so big that one of the subtitles of my book is Dreaming Big, right? The art of healthy arrogance and dreaming big. Mm-hmm. And the reason that I say you have to dream big is because of what you just talked about, because it's going to be freaking hard. You're going to run into things that are going to be so hard and challenges that are going to be so difficult that you're going to feel like, what is this for? Why am I doing this? Why don't I quit, turn around and go the other way? The goal has got to be so worth it, right? And this is true of anything you're going to do that's worth doing in life in any industry. It's going to be freaking hard. So make sure that you've got a goal that is worth it, a goal that is lofty enough, that is aspirational enough. You've got a dream that is full, vivid HD 4K that you're going after, so that when it gets really, really hard, you can say, yeah, but that's why I'm doing it. So that's really what it was for me. It was like this dream of being somebody that had a media empire, that had his own company, that, you know, was able to put out a lot of projects and have amazing people work for me and leave a legacy of folks that then went on to start their own companies and do great things within the industry. Like, that is huge. Those are things that really drove me. And those are the things that got me through the really, really tough and trying times. So you got to have a big enough dream to outweigh the huge challenges that inevitably you're going to face.
What are your fears as you look forward?
Within the industry or just in general?
Both.
I think within the industry, I don't know, fear may not be the right word, but concerns, things that give me pause, that create hesitancy, are just the unpredictability and the speed of change. And all of us in the industry have to deal with that. The speed of change. I talk about how you have to be malleable. You got to be malleable in life. You got to be certainly malleable in business. And you really got to be malleable in Hollywood, because what worked yesterday is not going to work 5 minutes later, right?
No.
Right.
And so the speed of change that our industry is going through, especially right now, is something that I pay a lot of attention to, and something that I certainly try to make sure that I am doing anything that I can to be as malleable as possible. You don't know the unknown, clearly, that by definition. However, you can do the best that you can to be prepared for what's to come, even if you can't put a finger on it. And in terms of like just personal fears, I'm now at the point where, you know, I'm a dad and my kids are older. My oldest just turned 30 and my youngest is a junior in college. So all my fears are probably around them. Like, dad's done okay. What you guys got? Like, that's where I'm at. I'm that kind of dad. Like, I've done my thing here. You know what I mean? I got you guys, like, I got you upright. Like, thank God nobody's like on drugs or in jail, right? Everybody is standing up, breathing on their own. All right. Now what are you going to do? I just have such lofty goals for them. And sometimes as a parents, we put our dreams onto them. And so anyway, any fears I have to do with fears of failure of people that are important to me, not necessarily just me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you talked about, you know, the fears that you had to face along the way. You know, I think when some of our listeners hear that your first student film for $20,000 made $100,000, they're going to be like, oh, he had Easy Street the whole time. Can you talk about kind of some of the ups and downs and some of the, you know, how some of the hurdles that not only that you faced personally, but that filmmakers face, that producers face, that, you know, that you guys face, because we see that student film, and then we see Stomp the Yard, and we see Straight Outta Compton. Can you talk a little bit about hurdles and how you did have a very, very, like you said, you were very bright. You had a whole nother, career over here in engineering that you could have fallen back on. So how did you, the fears and the hurdles that were in front of you, how did you keep going in that direction?
Yeah. We tend to communicate in highlights, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
especially now with the social media world we live in.
That's it. That's like, it's what's happening, what's good. And we all feel this pressure. And one of the things I do talk about in the book is like, don't feel this pressure to update everybody on every damn thing you're doing.
Yeah.
Stay in the lab and grind. That's what I call it, right? Put your head down, stay in the lab and grind, because it's the work that you put in when nobody is watching that makes everybody pay attention later. But we all feel this pressure because you feel like if I don't post in a week, then people are going to think that I am dead or failing, or both, right? I failed, and that failure,
and that might be worse than
that's like the craziest paradigm if you think about how we're living our life right now.
Literally,
that's wild.
Literally,
it's so true.
And by the way, and it's immediate. Like, it's not like, okay, well, let me think about what I'm going to post. No, it's like right now, today, I did the podcast and let people know, and it went well, and And all we're doing is we're posting our highlights. We're living in highlights. We're looking at everybody else's highlights. And so, yeah, Will Packer in first movie made this, and then he made Stomp the Yard and became number one. And he's got 10 number ones. He did this, he did that. In between is where the story gets told, right? To reach the peak of the mountain, that means there was a lot of climbing that you had to damn do in order to get to those peaks. So even with that first student film, like, it was really, really freaking hard to raise, like I said, $20,000. Mind you, these are broke college students in the early 90s. That was nothing. Yeah. Like, I didn't have that under a mattress or in a bank account. That was all the money in the world.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of folks said there's no version of me investing in this film. Then afterwards, after we made that movie, I left Tallahassee, Florida, and moved to Atlanta and started the production company that we had at that time, because I said, we're going for it. And we've got a successful little movie, and we got it on the shelves at Blockbuster video stores, and we're going to go raise money for this new company, production company. And we thought, you know what, if we can raise like $100,000. We raised $15,000 total postgraduate. I had an engineering degree on my shelf, $15,000. Mind you, I had one investor that gave us $10,000. That was our big investor. So all the other investment I got added up to that other $5,000.
$5,000.
Clearly, that was not enough to live on very long. And it was two of us chasing this dream. So these, what I call the ramen noodle days, this was when I was out delivering the Atlanta Journal-Constitution newspaper, answering the phone for Clorox, right? I was knocking on Hollywood's door and getting told, no, 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 no. You know, Stomp the Yard was a number one movie, but you never heard of a movie called Baseploitation, right? You know, Twa was a movie that I got out there, but you never heard of another movie called Any Given, what was it? I can't even remember the name of it. Like, these are movies that I was trying to get going that I was constantly getting told no, because we could not get, I think it was Sisters, Any Given. Anyway, I almost remember. I'll remember before we're done. But the point is, those aren't the stories that people ask about or that I talk about a lot, but that's the truth. So if you're a filmmaker watching this right now and you're in between, you're in a valley in between the peaks, you got to know the peak is coming. But the valleys are what make the peaks so good and what make them so worth it. So I had a lot of valleys. I had a lot of time when I could not get a single person to back me with my dream of making the next movie after that first student film. And in fact, the next movie that we made was called Twa. It was erotic thriller, African-Americans, had a kind of Fatal Attraction, Basic Instinct vibe. And what happened was we were going to go out, and the goal was to raise $250,000. This is back when you had to shoot on film, boys and girls, and there was no iPhones, and you couldn't edit on a laptop. Like, you had to go into an editing studio, all the things. It took money. It was expensive. And for the life of me, I could not raise that money. And so I then changed and I pivoted and I said, okay, instead of making the goal $250,000, I'm not going to have a financial goal. I'm going to have a date goal. And the date is going to be 3 months from today. And whatever I raise in 3 months from today, that's going to be the budget of the film. And we worked, raised as much as we could. And at the end of 3 months, we'd raised $75,000, a far cry from what we were trying to raise. So guess what? That movie was a tiny $75,000 budget movie. But I was able to do something and get some momentum. And so that's what happens in between. It's not that it was all success, but I did have the ability that I encourage other folks to do to adjust your definition of success. Also, give yourself some momentum. Sometimes you have to fabricate your own momentum, because at that time I didn't feel like, I was post-college, I had a degree, all my other friends had jobs, and I was, working part-time, making whatever I could, per hour, and not successful in the film industry. And it didn't seem like I would be successful. I needed something to even convince myself that this made sense. And so adjusting what we were going after, for us, it was the budget of the film. For somebody watching it, maybe something different. Don't get stuck on that first rung. Don't get stuck on I just got to get going and I can't figure out how to get going. Figure out a way, even if you have to fabricate it for yourself, to get a little bit of momentum. Complete that first goal, because then you can move on to the next one and then the next one. If those first goals are small, but you do 5 of them, you got momentum. you're rolling. It's like, I've done 5 things. I've accomplished 5 things. So maybe that first big thing, I haven't gotten there yet, but I have something going for me. So that's the other thing that I talk about when it comes to overcoming like those moments in between, right? In between the amazing Instagram post that everybody likes, in between, maybe getting the movie done and getting a great review in a newspaper. There are a lot of days in between. It's okay. Put your head down and grind. That's when you have to have the fight with yourself, which, by the way, is the toughest of them all. Sometimes you got to convince yourself, yeah, I'm on the right track. I'm doing this. I'm getting some momentum. I'm accomplishing things.
Well, one of the things with women in entertainment across the table, that we like to talk about is mentorship a little bit, in terms of, you're clearly a self-starter in terms of how you motivate yourself. But along your path, did you experience a lot of mentorship just because you're obviously known for mentoring a lot of folks across the industry? Is that something you're paying forward? Is it something that you feel you lacked, in terms of how as you were building your company, what did mentorship look like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I lacked was access and knowledge. And so because of that, I just wasn't in the right rooms, and I wasn't in the industry. I've never lived full time in Hollywood, not by choice. And so I definitely had people who were important and instrumental to my success. Everybody does. You don't do anything individually. I don't care who you are. I don't care what it is you're trying to accomplish. You need other people to support you and to be in your corner. And I certainly had that. Mentorship for me looked like the Hudlin brothers, Warrington and Reggie Hudlin, right? Famed brother filmmaking duo who made House Party and Boomerang, amongst others. And they were doing a small film. And in Jacksonville, Florida, and after I graduated from college, I got an internship on that film. It was my first time seeing how a real movie set worked. And it was a studio film. Miramax was financing the film at the time. And I got an opportunity to see firsthand how a studio movie set worked. They gave me that opportunity. And I went up to Warrington while we were shooting that film, and I had done my first little movie, Chocolate City. And I went up to him and started talking to him about me wanting to be a filmmaker and my goals. And like, you could see his eyes just glazing over. He is just like, yep, here we go. Another up and coming filmmaker. Until I pulled out my little shrink wrap VHS of Chocolate City. And he looked at that and he goes, wait, you made this? And I go, yeah, well, that's what I was saying. I did. He goes, okay, stop. He goes, first of all, I'll take it. I'll watch it. He says, probably not very good. Not the point. And I said, well, in my mind, I thought, give it a chance. Like, maybe not. Like, watch it, right?
Fabulous.
Yeah. What he said was, doesn't matter whether it's good or not. It matters that you got it done. You have something to show. He said, this industry is about people talking. Everybody's talking about what they're going to do, what they're about to do, what they are planning to do. He said, you've actually done something, and that gives you a leg up. That is how I view mentorship. It is so much easier for someone to be in your corner and to help and to assist you if you've already done something. You can't sit back and say, I need help. It's okay to ask for help. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is it is so much easier for somebody to help you when you're actually in the process of doing the thing. And the other thing about mentorship is that you got to remember it's a two-way street. So what I tell people is that it's not just about, okay, I've identified this person who would be so instrumental in my career. If there's nothing that you can add in value to that person's career, life, goals, and ambitions, then that's not a two-way street, and that mentorship is not going to work. Identify somebody that not only can be important and instrumental for you, but that you can add value to them. Because when you come and you meet somebody and you say, this is the thing that I'm really good at, and I know that this is an area that you're looking to work at, and I'll do it for free. I'm making it up, but I'm digitally focused and inclined, and I'm going to help you with your company to do things in the digital realm that you aren't currently doing. Well, if they're open to that, and then you do it really well, guess what? Now they want to pay that back, and they want to feed into you. It's a two-way street mentorship. It's not, people oftentimes think, well, the people with the positions of power and the titles, like, they're the only ones that can help. No, you can help them too. And so make sure you're positioning yourself as you seek mentorship as somebody that can add value to those people that you want to help you.
Yeah.
Well, this has come up a few times, but why Atlanta? Can you talk about that a little bit? And you've never, like you said, you've never lived full time in Hollywood.
No.
You were, again, kind of the trailblazer of that outside of Hollywood. Why did you make that decision?
Yeah. I'm very proud of the fact that, not like I invented the film industry in Atlanta. Atlanta actually had a very robust film industry in the 80s, and then it dried up and it got very slow. And when I moved to Atlanta after I graduated in 1996, there was not a lot of film production that was happening there at the time. And one of the reasons that Atlanta was so appealing was that I felt like coming out of college, I wasn't graduating from, NYU or USC or some big bastion of film prodigies. I was just an independent filmmaker, from an agricultural and mechanical school. But I had a lot of drive and ambition. I felt like if I go to New York, I'm going to be, or LA, New York, LA, I'm going to be just another small fish in a huge pond. But I felt like in Atlanta, which at the time had a burgeoning music scene, music was really starting to pop in Atlanta. And for those that know, this is the time of Outkast and LaFace Records, Babyface, L.A. Reid, Jermaine Dupri, and So Def, and artists like Tony Braxton and Ludacris and Usher and all those types of folks. And I felt like, you know what, I can go and have a symbiotic relationship with the music industry. Until the film thing pops, I'll be able to do music videos and do things that are still in entertainment, even though maybe not directly film, because music is popping in Atlanta. And I can be a medium-sized fish in a smaller pond. That was the thinking. I moved to Atlanta, and interestingly enough, I could not get a gig to produce one single music video because everybody there knew each other and they all hired the same folks, and I was just an outsider. And so I couldn't get none of those labels that I just named, and all those folks I'm very friendly with today. But when I first moved to Atlanta, I couldn't get a call returned. I couldn't get, all I wanted to do was produce the Ludacris music video. He's one of my very best friends right now. But at that time, there was no way I was getting that job because those people had been doing it for a while and they all knew each other. So what it did was this was one of those what I call fortuitous no's. The no of me not being able to produce those music videos forced me to then pivot and produce my first independent movie. I didn't plan on doing an independent film in Atlanta. I planned on living and working in Atlanta doing music stuff until I could get Hollywood to finance a film of mine. But Hollywood wouldn't answer, and now the Atlanta music scene wasn't an option. So guess what? I had to literally go out, and that's when I raised that $75,000, that whopping $75,000 to produce that first independent film. So that was my story. That's why I went to Atlanta. And then once I had success there, it was like we talked about with the NBA. Like once I was successful, I realized I didn't necessarily need to go to Wharton. Same thing. Once I started doing, I said, so wait, I can make movies from outside of Hollywood. And that movie made some money and Hollywood then called me. I don't necessarily have to move to Hollywood. I don't have to be in that system in the traditional way. And that's what happened. And so that whole idea of being the medium fish in the small pond, it kind of worked because once others started moving there, and then I was part of the group that lobbied the state legislature to get our film tax incentives passed. Now everybody comes to Atlanta to shoot.
It's huge.
It's a huge market. I used to joke that when I'd go out to LA, I'd say, "Whoo, glad I can go back to Atlanta, get away from all you Hollywood people." Now when I fly back to Atlanta, they're all on my flight. They're all going back there because they all got shoots that are happening.
I feel like it goes back to your two things: focused risk-taking and hard work.
Yeah.
And I know in your book you keep coming back to that. Work hard, work hard. There's just no easy path.
No.
So as you were saying, writing this book, Who Better Than You, is a kind of a solo project. What can you talk about what you have coming next? Do do you see another book on the horizon? What films, what projects you're working on? What do we have coming up for you, from you, for all of us to see?
Yeah, it's you're always, as a producer, you're always trying to keep the plate spinning, as I like to say, trying to keep the balls in the air. You're juggling. And I've enjoyed the process of storytelling, because in the book I tell a lot of stories of working with some of the biggest names and personalities and egos and some of the most amazing and also most toxic people in the world, and what I've learned from that, and how I think you can take some lessons from that to be successful and just live a more meaningful life. I've really enjoyed that. It's too soon for me to say whether, I would do it again. I didn't write it saying this is the first one of 3. Like, no, I said, let me just put it all in this book and then we'll see what happens. And I feel that way about when I create a project and folks ask, will there be a sequel? And I go, well, we'll see. Let's see. You know what I mean? Like, does it warrant one? And so we'll see that about the book. But in that same vein, one of the things that I am working very actively on is a sequel to one of my most successful projects, which is Girls Trip. And so we are actively working on our Girls Trip 2 sequel. And I'm very excited that we're in the lab, right? So we're not out telling everybody, posting every day an update. This is what's happening. No, we got our heads down. We're grinding. We're in the lab. But that is absolutely something that's coming up. The business has been, we've been very fortunate in that we are a very busy, small production company. I say small, and I say that with respect, because you got to be careful. You say small, somebody will go, dude, it is me and a phone, right? Like, hacker, you got a bunch of employees. Don't you call yourself small, right? So relatively, but we are very active, and especially at a time of consolidation and content constriction, right? The media companies aren't making as much right now, and that is, we all know it, those of us in the industry. So it's a challenging time, but we have been fortunate. We had a project called Fight Night, which is a big project that released last year with an incredible cast of characters based on a true story, and broke records on the Peacock platform. So we're excited about that. Coming out and doing other things with some of those same actors. So that was in the television space, in the feature space, Girls Trip 2, amongst other things that we haven't announced. I'm very big on, like, don't talk about it until it's time to talk about it. Hollywood is a big, let me talk about it, let everybody know what I'm doing. And I'm one of those that's like, you know what, we'll talk about it when it's time. So very excited about some of the stuff we've got going. But I will say that across the company, scripted television, unscripted television, features, and digital, we are very active in the digital space and will be more so. We have been able to be active, but we've also had to pivot. So make no mistake, even a production company like myself with some very important and strong relationships and backing, we still have to pivot as well in the current environment and make sure that what we're making are things that audiences want to see, that have value to those audiences, that they're willing to pay for, that I'm making them for the audience where the audience is, right? Not just theatrical, not just streaming, not just a particular medium. I have to be flexible and malleable like everybody else. So that is what I would encourage my fellow filmmaking peers is, you got to be flexible right now. You got to make it happen no matter what, because it's like the standard, if you have 1 + 1 + 1, you get 3, which is a great movie. Like, that's not happening now. You got to be creative about it. You might just have 1. You might not have the other 2. What can you do with that one element?
Well, just I know we're coming close to time. I had one question for you, more on the business side. As you were building your empire, how did you know it was time to expand into some of the other businesses that you invested in? As people are looking at, like, having a production company, then you branched into management and you branched into so many different services and offerings. Were they opportunities that came to you? Or is that always a dream? Like, what, and how did you determine that timing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm somebody that believes that you have ultimate goals, right? When you're first starting out thinking about what you're going to do, you got to keep your head down and look at what's in front of you. But you definitely clearly need to paint a picture. I always had a picture in my mind of a successful company that was active in multiple areas and arenas, that was in representation, that was in, you know, film and television and digital and docs. Like, I had that, but I didn't rush to do that, spread ourselves too thin, get outside our core competency until the right opportunity lined up with where we were as a company at that time. So I am somebody that believes, take your time, focus on what you do very well. Like we said earlier, do that thing that you do well and be the best at that, right? Like, if you're not the best, if you don't conquer one particular element, it's probably not time for you to move on to other elements. You know what I mean? You got more growth that you can have in the thing that's right in front of you. So for me, what happened was I always had a vision of a company that was wide ranging in terms of its core competency, but it wasn't until the right opportunity to take advantage of maybe a relationship or financing or a particular talent. It wasn't until the opportunity presented itself that we then decided, yes, this is the time to go out and expand. A lot of it is instinctual, and you have to trust your instincts, but your instincts get better over time the more that you work at them.
Like Renee said, we're out of time. I know we could talk to you all day, but as we close, we love to hear from our guests. What are you enjoying right now? What are you watching? What are you reading? What's out there that you're enjoying right now?
Yeah. I just picked up Mel Robbins' new book from the book side.
Yes, Let Them?
Yes, Let Them. And I'm excited to get into it. I've kind of been so busy, and I'm an audiobook guy. And so for all my audiobook fans out there, I had a lot of fun making this audiobook. I went and called in my favors. I've got Kevin Hart on the audiobook. I've got Idris Elba, Steve Harvey, Carmelo Anthony, Regina Hall. So it's a fun audiobook because I'm an audiobook person. And so I'm excited to get into Let Them, but I haven't yet, but I'm looking forward to that. I'm watching Severance is back, and I'm a Severance. My wife and I are Severance fans. And my wife is very strict. She is like, we have to watch it together. So
was that one of the best cliffhangers ever? Season 1.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
I mean,
oh my gosh.
Listen,
I haven't watched the new episode yet, so I'm the same. But yeah, and Hannah is the one who got me started on it. I love it.
Yeah. I'm big on that. So that's what I'm watching right now is Severance. But you know, I'm not a huge consumer of content, but I enjoy it. My schedule doesn't allow. There's a lot of things that I'm like, I got a running list of things that I got to catch up on. But I am somebody that enjoys good content. And right now, we're in the Oscar season. I'm not sure exactly when this will air, but, you know, I just finished my Oscar voting for the nominees. Nominations came out, and there were some of the Best Pictures nominees that I hadn't seen yet. And so I am that voter that I take it very seriously. I don't vote in a category if I haven't seen everything, because that's how I'd want people to do when my projects are up. So I got to get caught up on some of my Oscar viewing as well.
Okay.
Got it.
Well, Will, like we said, we are huge fans. We have been wishing for this, and it finally came true. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I want to say it again.
The pleasure is all
your
mine.
book.
This was fun, engaging combo, and I'd love to do it again sometime. Thank you for having me, ladies.